For this video, what we're going to cover is setting up a basic page layout for your site. And what I mean by that is we are going to have some designed elements for our header tag. We're going to have a section tag, a footer tag, as well as an article tag that we can use to put content in the following modules. So just doing a little bit of housekeeping, let's remove the divs that we used in the previous lesson just to kind of show how tag, class, and ID rules work. So we'll go ahead and move that. And let's go ahead and remove this CSS because we no longer require it. What we're going to do first is apply a rule to the body tag. And the reason we're going to do this is your body tag encloses all of the other tags and other classed and ID'd objects inside of your HTML page. And because of that, any rule that the body applies for certain things like font size, and other ones that we'll cover later, have a cascading effect on all the other HTML tags. A good example here, as you can see right now, we have kind of the basic Times New Roman font. We're going to change the entire page to Arial. So to do that is the same as what we did with the div. We type in body, we do our curly brackets, and we're going to type in font family. And what Dreamweaver does by default is it's kind of got these canned fonts together that you can use. So we'll just pick the fourth one here just for sake of ease. And we'll press S to save. When we'll go back and forth. And you can see that it changes the font even in the header tag, so it'll run that throughout. Now this font is obviously not the one that we want, so I'm going to remove this and show you. You can simply just type in Arial, semicolon, we'll save that, click in, click out, and now you have a default Arial font on the entire page. So if we put some text in here, you can see that that is Arial font as well. If you ever wanted to not necessarily delete a rule, but just turn it off temporarily, the same way we added comments inside of the HTML, you can do within CSS by again just holding Control and backslash, and it will temporarily, or as long as you want that off, turn that code off. So if we save the file, click on, click off, you can see it's reverted back to its original text. And to activate that code again, all you have to do is just click anywhere inside of where you can see it's commented out and press and hold Control backslash, and you'll re-enable that font. One thing you may have noticed, and it may not come across as very immediate, but there is a white border around the body. And that's done on purpose because body tags natively have a margin rule to them, which almost every website these days turns off, and really it's good practice too. There's no point not having your page bleed to the edge. So we're going to modify the margin of the body tag so it's flush to the edges. And it's a pretty straightforward rule for that, and similar to Word, you can see the margins around your page. We're going to turn the margins off around our website. So if we type in 0, that declares 0 for not just the top, the right, the bottom, and the left. So we go like that, we press save, we go in and out again, and now you can see that the body is flush with all the edges of the page. In later videos we're going to fill some of this information with content, but for today what we're going to do is just set up that basic layout. So we have our header, we have our section. We're going to add two other tags for this video, and that is the article, and just as you'd think, that's where you can put text. And you don't have to call them these, just so you know in the future. You could use divs for all of them. It's just for the sake of jumping into it. It makes it a little easy to have something that's a little more familiar. So you can see we have the section tag, the article tag, and it might be worthwhile if you want just to put some comments in there for yourself. And we'll just comment that out by pressing Control \, and then Control \ again. And what we're going to do is add a class to this section. So throughout this tutorials we've been going through, you've seen how we apply them when you first make the element. You can also add them to them after they've been made. So to do that, you just click inside the beginning tag, not the end, because you can't apply it to the end. You can only apply it to the start. So inside of there, I'm going to press space. We're going to type in C, so class comes up. You click that, and inside of these quotations we can define the class. You do not need to put a period. You only need to put a period if you're using the emit services within Dreamweaver to auto type or to declare it inside the CSS. But inside of the quotations you can just type your class name. So we're going to call it banner because, as you may have guessed, this is where we're going to put some banner information. And then the last thing we're going to put is the footer. So I'm just going to make another comment here. And these are all just kind of visual cues for you to remember how your code is structured. We'll type in footer. We have our footer tag now. And we'll just put another comment there, end of footer, and we'll comment that out. This way, you know, when you enter your code, because again, you're just jumping into it, you will forget what you've wrote, and you can use these as little reminders for you. Now that we have a basic layout of the HTML, we're going to apply some design rules here to make this look and feel a little more like a website. So let's just make sure we've saved what we got, Control S, and we're going to move to the CSS. We're going to look at this in a logical manner. We're going to code from the top down. So we're in the body tag. We're going to first start on the header. We type in header because we're working with a tag. We do our curly brackets again. And then just to make this stand out a little, we're going to apply some color to the background of this tag itself. And it's very straightforward here. Background. Obviously, you probably won't be familiar with hex codes just yet for codes of how you define color, so we're just going to use the color picker. I'm just going to go with a nice light gray to show some contrast, and I'll just save that again, show you back and forth. Now we have a color that's defined by the header. And if you're wondering why it goes all the way from left to right, and just like how body had a predefined margin of it, headers have a predefined width. The width is fine, we want it to be 100%, but as you can see right now, the text is very close, the header is very small. We want to increase the height. So to do that, we just type in height, and we'll go with, let's say, 70 pixels. Let's go ahead and save. And now you can see that the header is starting to look a little more like the top of a web page. Some other things we should be mindful of is you never see text at the top left or the edges of content, especially within a header tag or content tag or article tag, whichever you're working with. So we're going to apply a little bit of padding here. Padding is the inside of an object. Margin is the outside. So if we applied margin, you'd see white space going outside of it. Padding will move objects inside. We don't necessarily need to use padding for everything. We only need to use padding left for now. And we'll change this down the road, but just want to give you context here. If we do padding left 20 pixels, it's going to move the text 20 pixels to the left. Now, rather than having padding on the top and always having to do math if you ever to adjust it, you can do something called line height. And this modifies the overall height of the line the text is placed within. And an easy trick with this is you always make the line height the same height of the object if you want it to be centered. So for example, if we do 70 pixels in the line height, because we have 70 pixels height, you'll see that the text now is directly in the center of your header tag. So we're going to leave it here because in later videos we're going to come to applying a logo and a menu links to the information that we have here, and we'll of course change the padding. So this is something that we'll come back to, because again, for today's video what we're going to just be focusing on is the overall layout of our page. So working our way down, let's look at our section tag, and we're going to use banner to define the rules here, because we may end up using a section in our page later on. And just as a recap for that, to define a class rule, we started off with a period. We go ahead and type the name of our class, and as we always do, curly brackets, and now we can start applying rules to our section. And usually in a banner you'll have pretty big text, kind of like that call to action to your website, and it's relatively large. So let's define the height. Let's do, say, 400 pixels, relatively large size. And we're not going to see anything just yet because we haven't applied just anything visual. So let's go ahead and add a background too. And what we'll cover in later classes is how you can use gradients and images. Just for today we're going to do colors. I'm just again going to go with something soft just to show some visual context here. Add our semicolon, we'll press save, and now you can see we have what the beginning of a banner is. Banner typically have larger text, so why don't we go ahead and do font size of, say, 50 pixels, and you can even change the color if you want, if you feel it'll pop a little more. For mine, I'm not going to because I have a lighter color, but whatever colors you choose, you can choose to play around with that. And to do that, of course, though, is just color, and I'm going to do just black. You don't actually have to type in the color codes. You can just type the color. So now we have some text here. We're going to apply a similar format we did with the line height. We're going to make the line height here 400 pixels. We're going to save that. And now you can see our text is centered, vertically centered rather. And then what we're going to do next is text align the content in the middle. So we're just going to do text align again. We're going to apply center, and we're going to go ahead and save. After we do that, you'll see you go ahead and preview. We have the text now in the center. What we will do next is preview this in the browser. So in order to do that, you have to just do File, Preview, Real-Time Preview, and we'll just go ahead and make sure we have everything saved. So File, and then we're going to go to Real-Time Preview in Google Chrome. And now you can see here we have the header elements, the banner elements, and we're going to create a section for the article, and lastly the footer. So moving on, let's go to the article tag, creating our curly brackets. And we don't need the article text to necessarily be the same size, so 100%. What we can do actually here is create something that's, say, half the page. We'll again change these rules later on, but it's good to give context here. So if we do width 50%, now the article is only going to be half the width of the entire page. So let's go ahead and save that, and we're going to just make some text goes here just to give context of what we're doing. So I'm just going to grab some dummy text here, and we'll just paste that in just to make it look like we have some content there. And you can see it's going to wrap it now because the content is only half the width of the entire page. So what we can do here now is similar to aligning text in the center, we're going to align the article tag in the center of the page. So the way that tags work are not the same as necessarily text. We need to define this by the margins. So in order to do that, we type in margin, and we don't want any on the top or the bottom, so we're going to choose 0, and then we're going to type in auto. And 0 auto, as you can see, will center contents in the middle. Anything that's a tag, like footer, article, header, section, div, if you apply margin 0 auto, you will center the object in the page. And what we're going to do here is also just define a height, just to give you a little bit of visual context here. We're going to make this 400 pixels as well. Now you can see that it will be longer eventually, but what we need to do as well is apply a border just so you can visually see it. And it's as straightforward as that. We're going to do border solid, which means it's going to have a solid border around it. I'm going to make it 1 pixel just so we can see it, and then I'll pick a color picker. You can also, if you want to make sure you have the same colors as the rest of your page, you can use the dabber tool to select colors already existing within your page. And now the border of this will be the same as the header. And we can go ahead and preview that again in Chrome. And now you can see we're starting to have a little bit of a feel for a website. We got our header here, we have our banner, we have our section for text. And the last thing we're going to do in this video is apply a footer. So same as we did with article and header, we are going to apply a footer rule. But instead of creating a new one, we're going to make our header and footer look the exact same. Footers are already going to be on the bottom of the page because it's the last element that's in our HTML. And we want it to look the same way that our header is. So rather than saying copying the code and pasting it below, we can just do comma footer. And what that does is it defines I want the header and the footer to share these rules. And when we do that, you can see now that the footer at the bottom maintains all the same rules that the header does. And this can be useful when you have generalized styling components you want to use on other objects, because you can do this here and you can still have a secondary rule for the footer that the header will not share. For example, if we did color white and we save that, and then we just put some example text in here, you'll see that the text is white in the footer but maintains the default black in the header. And when we make sure both objects are saved and we do File, Preview in Chrome, just gotta make sure I have everything clicked, Preview in Chrome, we now have our header, our banner, our article text, and our footer, utilizing CSS style to make this come and feel now like a starting to be real website.